Alright, so in lesson 6.3 here we are going to discuss matrix multiplication. In 6.1, 6.2 we did a lot of vocabulary about matrices and then did some adding and subtracting and scalar multiplication where we multiplied a number in, but this is actually the process of multiplying two matrices together. And because it's a little bit more complicated, it has its own lesson. So one thing that we have to look at when we are multiplying two matrices together is the size of them. So in order to be able to multiply two matrices together, you have to look at the number of columns in the first and the number of rows in the second, and those must match. The answer will be the size of the rows in the first and the columns in the second. So rather than when we added and subtracted matrices, where they had to be the exact same size and you got the exact same size out, matrix multiplication works a little bit differently. Now, the one good thing about this is that we're going to be doing a lot in our calculators, but just to kind of practice a few things. If I was looking at this first example, if A is a 3 by 5 and B is a 5 by 3, if I was multiplying matrix A times matrix B, I would check the sizes, 3 by 5, 5 by 3. The numbers in the middle have to match. The answer is going to be the size of the outer numbers. So the answer would be a 3 by 3. Now, in matrix multiplication, the other important thing is that order matters. So when I say A times B, you look at A first, then B. If I said in the opposite way, B times A, you would say matrix B is 5 by 3, matrix A is 3 by 5, and you would check the same way. Do the middle numbers match? Yes. Therefore, the answer to this would be a 5 by 5 matrix. So another good example right below here would be if C is a 3 by 5 and D is a 7 by 3. So let's check. If I have matrix C times matrix D, I would check C is 3 by 5, D is 7 by 3. The middle numbers must match in order for me to multiply. So C times D is undefined or no solution. Couldn't do that. On the other hand, that doesn't mean I can't do D times C. So I would check D. D is 7 by 3. C is 3 by 5. Check the middle numbers. If those match, then the answer is the outer numbers. 7 by 5 is what it would look like. Okay? Now, we are not going to do a whole lot of multiplying by hand, but just so you understand how it works. It takes the numbers in the first row and multiplies it by the first column and adds them together. So what you see there is A times W and B times Y, and then adds them together. Then for the second one, I would take the first row multiplied by the second column. So that's where I get the A times the X plus the B times the Z. I would then go into the second row, first column. So that's where we get C times W plus D times Y. And then finally, for the last spot, I would do the bottom row times the second column, which is where I get the C times X and B times Z. And I don't see a whole lot of point in multiplying these by hand, so a lot of what we're going to be doing here is going to be flipping back and forth between our calculators. So, in order to do that, let's take a look at the matrices that we have here. If I want to multiply matrix A and matrix B, we're going to plug them both into our calculators. So first and foremost, this is where I do find it helpful to name matrices and store matrix A and matrix B, especially if you're going to do more than one thing with them. And this could have been helpful on our homework if we did that previously for 6.2, where you had to do a lot of the same matrices again and again. You can do this by storing matrices in your calculator. So first, I have to do one calculator at a time. Let's take a look at an 84 calculator. You find, and we've done this before, your matrix menu here. This time I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in matrix A and matrix B at the same time. So I'm going to edit A, and I'm going to make a 2 by 2 matrix. And I'm going to type in matrix A is 5, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to go back into my matrix menu. I'm going to go back over to edit, and I'm going to edit matrix B. B is already a 2 by 2, but I want matrix B to be negative 1, 4, 0, and 1. It looks like I haven't edited this since last year at this time. Now, in order to do multiplication, I'm going to quit first. So once they're both typed in, you want to quit. Go to second, back to your matrix menu. If I want to do A times B, again, order matters. So I want to do A, use my multiplication sign, go back into my matrix menu, then choose B. First, I would have checked probably if I would have gotten an answer out of either one of these by checking the size. So going back to that, I should have done that first. I should have checked, okay, matrix A is a 2 by 2. Matrix B is a 2 by 2. Check if the middle numbers match. If they do, that means my answer to AB I should expect to be a 2 by 2. And that would work vice versa for B times A. But that makes it very easy for me to do A times B, get out a matrix, and then go back in and do B times A. Notice you're going to get two different answers because, like we said, order matters on these. Now, for my Inspire, you will go into your menu next to the number 9 and choose one of your matrices. Here's where I would actually use this 2 by 2 one. I would first type in my matrix A is 5, 3, 2, 1. And this is where, for you guys, I would use your store button right here. See the little blue letters STO above the variable key. So if I use that, it gives me an arrow. I'd like to store this as A. And you can do capital, you can do lowercase. If you want to do a capital, you have to use the shift button. So I'll store it as capital A. Then I will do the same thing as matrix B. So I'll go ahead and store, and if there's just two like there are here, you might not find it useful to store them, but I just kind of want to show you how to do that if you ever need to. And then 0, 1, I'm going to store this one as matrix B. Now again, then to do your matrix multiplication, I can do A times B. Notice it bolds the letters A and B because you've stored something there. If I'll do A times B, I'll get a different answer than if I do B times A. And it looks like whether you store it as a capital or a lowercase, it doesn't actually matter. So don't waste your time using the shift key and doing it as a capital. So you can pretty easily multiply matrices together in your calculator. And that's really how we're going to hang out and do that. So in the example 2 here, the first thing before you type any of these in that I would want you to do is to check if they would work. So let's go through all 4 of those at once. A is a 2 by 3 matrix. The second one is a 3 by 2. If the middle numbers match, which they do, that means my answer should be a 2 by 2. So that's one that I'd go ahead and type in my calculator and make sure that I could do. I would then also say B is a 1 by 3, and this one is a 3 by 1. Since the middle numbers match, I should get an answer out that is a 1 by 1. I would check C. This is a 3 by 1. The second one is a 1 by 2. Since the middle numbers match, I should get an answer that is a 3 by 2. And finally in D, this is a 3 by 3. The second one is a 3 by 3, so since the middle numbers match, I should end up with an answer. That is a 3 by 3. So before I ever do any multiplication in my calculator, because I don't want to do all of this by hand, I would go ahead and check if they would work before I type them in. So what I'd like you to do is hit pause for a minute, take a minute, and type each of these into your calculator. Okay, so once you're done typing in all 4 of those, you can check your answers along with me. Here's the answer highlighted right here to the first one. Typed in the second one, just got the matrix 32. Third one, I do have a 3 by 2 matrix here, and the fourth one, I have a 3 by 3 as well. So just check your answers along with me for those. And then let's look at the next one. So again, if I was to find an A times B times C, I would have to check each of these as we went. So multiplication, just like any other type of multiplication, goes in order. So I have to check the size of these before I would type it in. So I would first check A is a 2 by 2, B is a 2 by 3. If I multiply those together, it will work, and I will end up from that one with a 2 by 3 matrix from the outer ones. So then I would check, can I multiply that by C? C is a 3 by 2. Sure enough, the middle numbers match. Therefore, my final answer from multiplying all 3 of those together should be a 2 by 2 matrix. So I would go to my calculator. I would make sure that I type all of those in correctly and multiply them in order, A times B times C. So that is simply going back to my calculator, choosing a 2 by 2 matrix for A. And at this point, I'm just using a calculator. That's 1, -2, -3, -4 times matrix B is 3, 0, -1. Okay, I need a 2 by 3. That's going to be 3, 0, -1. 1, 1, 2. And then we will multiply by matrix C, which is a 3 by 2. One, 0, 0, 2, 1, 1. And I can multiply all 3 together at the same time and get an answer back out. Last but not least, this means you can do powers of matrices. So it tells us that A is a 2 by 2 and find A cubed. Since A is the same size, you can multiply it by itself any number of times. So this you could either do by typing in a 2 by 2 matrix and saying multiply by itself 3 times, or you can actually use the exponents in your calculator and take this entire matrix to the 3rd power, and it will spit out A cubed.